Well, hello. The third in a series of composition videos, hopefully. Getting a few 100,000 or maybe a million or two. What we're going to talk about now is elements, the elements of music. One of the best things you can do when you're starting out or if you're far along and want to improve is you want to make all of the elements automatic. You want to just simply know them without thinking. So you're playing along and you want a dominant 7 flat 5 chord, and you say, well, what is that? Let me see, what's the spelling there? What is that? You're doing that thinking, it interrupts the process. That's no good. The process needs to flow. So what you need to do is render all of those chords or any of the elements of music into memory. You want to memorize everything. When learning music and various procedures, it's best to work at the pace that's comfortable for you. You want to work so that it's challenging, so it won't be boring. You want it to be interesting, but you don't want to go so fast that it's frustrating. So always pick the pace that you wish to go. So we're going to talk about one element to begin with, and we're going to talk about that in its triads, simple triads. So for instance, if you decide, well, I need an F chord, you should know the spelling of an F chord. For instance, FAC. So all major chords should be memorized, including the enharmonic variants. So, for instance, you'd say C, G, D flat, F, A flat, D, F sharp, A, E flat, G, B flat, E, G sharp, B, F, A, C, F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, G, B, D, A flat, C, E flat, A, C sharp, E, B flat, D, F, B, D sharp, F sharp. So there. Whenever you want a major chord, you simply know the spelling of it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to look at it. So, thus, it'd be the same for the minor chords. What do I want? I want an A flat minor chord. An A flat, C flat, E flat. So it's just immediate. Then we can add the sevenths. I want a dominant seventh on G, G, B, D, F. So all chords, as much as we can, all types of chords, we want to know them in all 12 keys. So that when we hear a sound in our head, whether if we're composing, we have an idea, we're not thinking about that. We're putting down what's flowing out of us. We're not thinking about the technical elements. Same thing for if you're playing and improvising. It's the same thing. You want to be able to get in the zone. You don't want to be thinking. Thinking is a problem. Thinking interferes with how things flow out of you. So some simple chords to add to our major and minor chord. C augmented, C, E, G sharp, the fifth is raised. Or we have C diminished, C, E flat, G flat. We have C fully diminished seventh, C, E flat, G flat, A, or C, E flat, G flat, B flat, which would be C half diminished. So where would that come from? Where does that come from, the half diminished, C half diminished? Well, happens to be the 7 chord to what? D flat. So next, we just sort of look at a scale, a major scale, and you say, well, what's the construction of a major scale? There are whole steps, except for between the 3rd and 4th, and the 7th and the 8th, which is the root. So if you have key signatures, they'll tell you exactly where those intervals fall. Something that's a must to memorize would be the circle of fifths. So that, for instance, we have C, and it has no sharps or flats. So if I move up a fifth from C, I go to G. C, D, E, F, G. So G is the fifth in the key of C. And if we go to the key of G, we add one sharp. So a G scale would be just G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So I go up a fifth from G, I get D. So I add another sharp, two sharps. So D, the key of D major, has two sharps. A major has three sharps. E major has four sharps. B has five. F sharp has six. C sharp has seven. Going the other direction from C toward the flat side, the key of F is one flat, B flat has two flats, E flat has three flats, A flat has four flats, D flat has five flats, G flat has six flats, and C flat has seven flats. So now when I add these sharps or flats, okay, the circle of fifths will help me. So in the order of sharps, you can remember this word, fakagdiab. That would be F, C, G, D, A, E, B. So once again, we're moving in fifths. So when I add one sharp to the key of G, it's F sharp. Two sharps to the key of D would be F sharp and C sharp. The key of A would be F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, and so forth. The flats are the same thing. I call it beadguksuf. B-E-A-D-G-C-F. So the key of F would have one flat, that's B flat. Key of B flat would have two flats, and that would be B and E. Then three flats for the key of E flat, B, E, and A. So now that you have the major scales all organized with their associated key signatures, let's talk about minor scales. Now if I want to get the scale key signature for the minor, well, I go up a minor third or down a minor third depending on what I'm doing. So let's say I'm in C major. If I go down a minor third, I go to A. So the key signature for C major is the same key signature for A minor. And the same cycle repeats all the way through. So if you have A minor, what's D minor? Well, we're going the flat direction, so it'd be one flat. G minor would be two flats. C minor would be three flats. If I go the other direction, E minor would be one sharp. B minor would be two sharps. And then three sharps would be F sharp minor. Now this would be called the natural minor. In the development of music, they of course used these modes, and at some point they said to themselves, well, let's listen to the 5 chord to the 1, for instance, and the 5 chord would be a minor chord in the natural minor. And so the fact that you would be using these different chords, so it's rather weak. So for instance, the tritone that's in the G chord would tend to always pull towards C, so you'd have to use your chords very judiciously so as not to sort of drift into C if you didn't want to go there. So what they did was they raised the third of the 5 chord. So in the key of C, instead of having a B flat at the third of the G chord, okay, they wanted a G major chord, so G, B, D. And what was the point of that? Well, if you go out to the 7th, G, B, D, F, between the 3rd and the 7th is a tritone, B and F. And so B and F, well, if you resolve that tritone smoothly, the tritone is a dissonance. If you resolve it smoothly, the F goes to the E and the B goes to the C. Of course, tritones have 2 resolutions. So for instance, the F can go up to F sharp, and the B can go where to? A sharp. So what do we have there? F sharp and A sharp. So as you can see, this leads to things like the tritone substitution and so forth and so on. But anyway, so by raising the 7th, our C minor scale, which would be, now notice that if we went down a minor third, the key signature of C would suffice for A minor. Okay, the key signature of E flat, which is a minor third above C, suffices as the key signature for C minor, which is 3 flats. But we're going to raise the 7th, that is the B, the leading tone, and so now we get a harmonic minor scale. C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B natural, and C. Now they said at some point, they said, well, you know, I'm noticing this interval A flat to B natural is an augmented second, which is the distance of a minor third, really, technically. And so in some instances, they wanted to smooth that out, so they said, you know what, let's raise the 6th too. And for my money, they came up with the most interesting scale of all the simple natural scales, and that's the melodic minor. Very mysterious scale. That's very interesting. So you see that. Let's cover the other minor scale. It's a simple minor scale. Is Dorian, where they raise the 6th but not the 7th. So C, D, E flat, F, G, then the 6th, A natural, with a lowered 7th, B flat, which is the same as the natural minor, and then C. Very popular scale in jazz. So all of these scales have triads at each level. So let's take the C major scale, for instance. If I take the root, which is C, and I go up a third, which is E, and I go up another third, it's G, a major chord, which is a major third and a minor third on top of that. If I go up to the 7th, I get B. So what I want to do is I want to memorize every chord type of the major scale. So, for instance, the 1 chord is a major 7th chord, C, E, G, B natural. The 2 chord is D minor 7th. 3 chords E minor 7th. The 4 chord is F major 7th. The 5 chord is G dominant, which is a G chord with the lowered 7th. It has the tritone that enforces the C. The 6th chord is A minor 7th. And then the 7th chord is B half diminished. A little interesting tidbit about your half diminished chord, or your 7th chord, is there are different ways of looking at it. Some people view the 7th chord, a diminished chord, as just an incomplete 5 chord. So a diminished 7th chord, they would call that an incomplete 5/9. So if I take B, D, F, A, the half diminished chord, if I jam a G down in the bass, big prominent G, well, what do I have? I have G9. And so it has the tritone that pulls to the C, and that's a very popular way of looking at it, a very old way. But we can develop many different ways of thinking about these things. So it's good to be aware of as much as you can. Gives you more things to do, more usages, more flexibility, more fun. So in any case, I can apply that model to any scale. So if I go and I say, well, what's the 3 chord in the key of E? What is that? Well, I go up to G sharp, which is the 3rd in the key of E, and of course it would be G sharp minor 7th. The 3 chord will always be a minor 7th. So the task, reduce these elements to automatic. Automatically know what they are. In the key of A flat, what is the 6th chord? You want to know this. You don't want to have to think about it. You don't want to have to dredge it up. You want to know that F minor chord is the 6th chord. So let's take it, for instance, the melodic minor. And what are the elements in it? Same thing. It's very interesting. If you can listen to these chords, the 1 chord is a minor chord with a major 7th. I love that chord. I like most chords anyway. So I'm a pushover. I like all chords. So the 2 chord is a minor 7th chord. The 3 chord is an augmented chord with a major 7th. And you'll, of course, instantly hear that relationship to the 1 chord, as most of the elements in the 1 chord are there. Now you take the 4 chord, and now this is really interesting. This is real easy. This makes it really easy. Go dom, dom, dim, dim. So the 4 and 5 chord are dominant 7th chords, and the 6th and 7th chords are half diminished chords. That really makes the melodic minor an exceptionally interesting key, because you have 2 half diminished chords. If you really like to modulate and rove about and imply things and make things a little murky, a little bit gray, it's a wonderful scale. So, of course, we'll show you these examples. So, this works with improvisation too. Improvisation. Let's say as many different twisted pronunciations of improvisation. So, you take, for instance, a flat 9 chord. So you say, well, okay, I want to be an improviser. Well, one of the beautiful things about rendering everything automatically is that whenever you hear a sound in your head, you can immediately access it. There's no thinking about it. And so what it is, your mind is able to make the choices that it's desiring to hear. So someone would start, for instance, and say, okay, let's take a voicing with the root in the bass, and then the 7th is the next note, and then the 3rd in the so the tenor, of course, has the 7th, in the alto, we would have the third, and then the flatted ninth would be in the soprano. So C up to its seventh, which would be B flat, and then E. See, we have the makings of our dominant seventh chord, and then the flatted ninth. The ninth, of course, is the same as the second, just as the 11th is the fourth, 13th is the sixth, etc. So you would and we would if the dominant seventh is present, we would call it an extension out there. So for instance, it would be if we say C9, it's implied that the seventh is lowered and it's a B flat. It's a dominant structure. If I had a ninth and the seventh was major, I would call it C major 7. So I would know that the B is natural. If I have no seventh, I could just call that C2 or R2 C2. What's interesting about that chord is that Steely Dan used it so much. Eventually, they developed a name for it. They called it mu, M-U. So whatever you do, whatever you call something is fine. You could call it the onion chord, but as long as you have it categorized, you know what it is, you know what it sounds like, you know, you can identify the sound of it, and that's the whole point. All is well. So let's say, for instance, a good exercise for making these chords automatic and embedding the other elements would be to play in all 12 keys this voicing of the flat 9 chord. So for instance, then I'll go up in fifths. So I'll play C flat 9, G flat 9, not G flat 9, but G flat 9. Very tricky, very redundant. I would redo this so that there could be no ambiguity. There are lots of things where they use the same wording for different things. So I'll call it. No, I won't call it anything new. I was gonna get carried away there. So then we would go to D. What's the next one up? A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, which is enharmonically the same as D flat. And since we don't want to keep going that direction, we don't want to go G sharp, it's much cleaner to go to A flat. Then from A flat, E flat, B flat, F, and back we show up C. So begin slowly playing those, get the feel of them, try to play them faster and faster and faster till we eventually want to play it with Oscar Peterson-like speed. So, if you desire that. So, for all of you people who are sleuths and detectives, one of the chords was not a flat 9 chord. It was a dominant 7th chord. See if you can guess which one was not correct. So in conclusion, if you want some additional material that will really give you a lot to chew on, Nicholas Slonimsky wrote a really all-encompassing book. the book Nicholas wrote was The Thesaurus of Scales and Melodies. Really fun book. You know, you can also study lots of other people's ways of doing things. Of course, I mentioned to you that certain ways of treating the tritone. You know, people like Cecil Taylor make it the new consonants. In fact, most of the time, he doesn't play a perfect fifth. He always flats the fifth. And that's part of his language. It's the way he likes it. And you get to retrofit your musical elements to whatever your ear desires. You can make your own little world and organizations and way of viewing things. So I recommend get out there. There are lots of great books. A lot of people have written them about all of these different elements. You can get the elements, master them, memorize them, and then the thinking is done. That's right. The memorization has happened. The thinking has been done. Now you can get to dreaming and inventing and following your whimsy. Thank you very much. Good day.